I was going to bring up something real quick. We always have just a few announcements, Rajam, at the beginning to give some people a little bit more time, but I try not to like overweight so that we can get to our content. But I wanted, in my last minute, let's see, here we go. I don't know if this will work. I'm going to look at a shared folder. Quick. And it's right at 8 o'clock. And so I want to welcome everybody to At the Intersection this morning. And I was quick looking to see if I can bring up a shared folder. And you tell me if this works. So a week ago, Tuesday, we had so do we see files up here from Fred?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. We had the gathering downtown. These are going to take a little bit to Mesa de la Gente for Thanksgiving. And it was focused on giving. So there was a food drive with the food bank. Oh my gosh, look at this great picture. These were all taken by the city photographer. And so I'm just going to kind of click through them while I ramble on a bit. But this was formed out of a collaborative this year. All of us are familiar that we do collaborative work, but pulling together both the annual, which has been a couple decades of prayer at Thanksgiving time, as it's a national holiday and not from one religion. And so it's a time to come together and pray. And so that's been happening in the cathedral for, I think, about 24 or so years. And then the food bank has also been doing a regular prayer gathering. Aren't these great photos?
Oh, amazing.
Even this, the Raindrop Ensemble, as if Mehmet's there, he can tell you all the different faith traditions that are a part of it. But the food bank has also been having an annual event called Feeding Hope. Long story short, the thought was, what if we merged them together and it could be more, more efficient, and not just all about efficiency, but more people might attend. And it did. We rough but fairly accurate as you can be with feral cats count. I think we more than doubled the combined attendance that had happened on both of those events in last year. So this year had an outside event. Again, these are beautiful pictures. Mehmet, is your mic open?
Yeah, good morning.
Can you tell us in that ensemble? Oh, Rajam, you might recognize that person. In that ensemble, how many faith traditions are in there?
I mean, we have all of them. We have non-believers as well.
Non-believers as well. So this was the native healing drum that happened at 20 till the hour. And then some might recognize Linda. She spoke last Thursday at the intersection and is also on Compassionate USA. I'm going to really go fast now because they're just such beautiful pictures, right? So the outside portion was added to what has happened previous years inside the cathedral. So this was inside the cathedral. Oh, the youth choir. It was so lovely to hear the healing drum outside while the youth choir was also singing inside with the doors open. It was just a lovely, that was my favorite part, although it was all just so beautiful. And look at the diversity. These are 3 of our prayers inside the cathedral. Sure. She was amazing. And I'm going to speed now. I just want to mention other upcoming, these are blurry as they load, 3 upcoming multi-faith gatherings. The Sunday before, the day before Martin Luther King March, there's the annual Martin Luther King Interfaith service. It's usually around 4:30. I think it's at St. Paul's United Methodist this year. Mei Lee is Baha'i. She brought her children forward to pray.
That's Mei Lee.
So that's on the 14th. You can Google any of these, and I'll get better in the next couple of weeks giving you the exact dates and times. The first ever Festival of Faiths in San Antonio. Wendy is pulling together, person on screen, from the Interfaith San Antonio Alliance. And that will be on Sunday, January 21st at the University of the Incarnate Word. And it's all afternoon. It's something like 1 to 6. But where we'll be exploring and hearing from different traditions. Isn't that fun? Beautiful pictures. Beautiful pictures. So I want to go ahead and start with today's continuing conversation on healing from the different faith, spiritual, religious traditions that we have in our city. And we kind of got that psychological view from Dr. Poonam Shamra 3 weeks ago, because we didn't meet last Thursday. And then we had Linda Jimenez from our First Peoples community come and talk about healing from that perspective. And today we have Dr. Rajam Ramamurthy. And she's also one of our San Antonio Peace Laureates and dear friend, and kind of stepped up at last minute. And anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing what Rajam has to share with us in terms of healing from the Hindu tradition. So Rajam, I'm going to turn it over to you. I encourage you just to relax and enjoy this and share with us. She's also a medical doctor, which I put in the notice. So we kind of get that benefit as well, right? So Rajam, share with us. Tell us a little bit about healing within the Hindu tradition.
Namaste. Good morning. It's purely a selfish act on my part to participate in the Thursday intersection meetings, to be in the presence of like-minded people. It is like going through a HEB supercharger and returning fully charged with possibilities, can-dos, and hope. Thank you. Thank you all. So many faces that I know, I recognize, and have known for a long, long time. And thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
All of us are striving to create a world that we may not even fully comprehend, grasp. And does it not seem at times like you are walking through a forest and way over there you are seeing the end of the forest, the clearing is coming, and all of a sudden a landmine goes off? Yet the journey must continue. It is the only way out of the jungle. We are discussing healing from a Hindu point of view. We must distinguish between healing, a physical healing, healing from a disease, and there is an ocean of information, practices in the Hindu tradition when it comes to medicine kind of healing. and it's still being used, still being practiced, still studied, and you have all heard about words like Ayurveda, Unani medicine, Siddha. So these are all things that are abundant, and there are books and things. And today, I think we are focusing on healing of a community, healing of a community from a traumatic occurrence. And there can be so many different ones of them. Although one has significant implication for the other. Great, the physical illness may have societal implications. And one example that jumps up at me right away is mental illness and an automatic gun in the hands of that person. How much community trauma it causes. So that is an example of that, and how a community event traumatizes all of us adults, and particularly the children who have to go through repeated traumas. Whenever a thing happens that brings all our focus into that area, being a pediatrician, I immediately imagine children. I immediately imagine the children in that area and how they are growing up in this kind of an environment, and what kind of society are we creating in that kind of environment. So let's for a moment look at how a Hindu is expected to think. When I was trying to think about community healing, so many things are so common in all our traditions, very, very common. I think we have, thankfully, religious institutions that provide us a space where we gather, and we are providing that social kind of interaction that is so much needed in these times. Gatherings like this are so important, and where we can share. You and I come from different traditions, but we are maybe speaking the same language. And so in the Hindu tradition, okay, I'm hearing some noises. All beings, from the smallest organism to man, all beings from the smallest organisms to man are considered manifestations of the divine. And you can define the divine as existence, a pure being, or just consciousness, or reflections of divine qualities, depending upon the school of thought that you come from. And in the Hindu tradition, it is like looking at people reaching at something in different ways and trying to reach the same kind of endpoint. And ekam satyam vipraha bahuda vadanti, very commonly quoted by people. Ekam satyam, there is one truth, one super consciousness that we all recognize, but we have different ways of reaching out. Because of this shared divinity, Hinduism views the universe as a family. And this in the Sanskrit language is called Vasudevaka Kudumbakam. Kudumbam means a family, and Vasudeva is divine, a divine family. So if you view the world as a family, maybe it gives you an idea about what we would desire for our family. What would we desire for our children? What would we desire for ourselves? So it is that kind of an idea. And I'm telling you about what is expected of a Hindu. Is it really happening? Is a totally different thing in all our traditions. I think we are taught something through our faith, but we practice something so totally different. And this has always made me think, why do we do that? We embrace our faith so much that we would create harm in the name of that faith. And I strongly also believe it is because our faith is being manipulated by other forces, political, economic, and that is where the clouding of the faith is really coming from. Hinduism is a natural religion, meaning its philosophies and practices are considered universally accessible through study, maybe experience, and apart from the special revelations that are mentioned in all the things. Hinduism is also an indigenous religion that is made up of diverse families, family of philosophies and traditions that have been practiced primarily throughout Asia, and in some countries it is the majority, like India, Nepal, and countries like that. So when a community event happens in the Hindu tradition, the individual is expected to help, intervene, and stand up. And to the extent of even taking arms in order to protect good. So it's kind of, somewhat similar to what happens in the world and somewhat similar to what we are learning in other traditions. Because you're viewing the world as one entity, like we are all part of this oneness, like you are not apart from the divine. You are part of that divinity, and therefore you have to reach out. You have to reach out to help. So mankind is the most spiritually evolved being. So I think it is also taught in Hinduism that you have the facility to act differently, to be able to think, to reason, and to figure out. So mankind is supposed to have this special responsibility to honor the equal worth of people and underlying unity of experience through one's relationship with oneself and with others. And when I think about this, I think about the compassion things we are paying more attention to these days, how important it is that we pay attention to ourselves during times of trauma. So that is where in the Hindu tradition, the practice of meditation, and in all our traditions, the practice of prayer, which is a form of meditation, helps in these times. Like you give yourself 10 minutes, 5 minutes a day to be with yourself, just to let yourself become a part of this universal consciousness. And then you get the strength, you get charged to be able to look at those immediately around you, to be able to do something for them, to help them, and then go beyond that to help the community, the world, and the society. So the values such as truth, kindness, and equanimity, which is a very strong word and considered a very high status to reach. For a person to reach that status of equanimity, in the Hindu language, it is called sthita prajna in Sanskrit. And for you to reach that position, it takes a lot of practice. There are some people who come with that facility, who are good at it, who can be at peace all the time. And otherwise, we have to strive for it. And one of the tools in striving for it is through meditation and through prayer, things like that. So this is very much emphasized. Another common thing that I came across, I didn't read too much about it and didn't give me any time to prepare. Yeah. I was thinking about how important it is during these times and how thankful we should be and how lucky we are to have our religious gathering places. Because I think these are the places where we decompress. And all of you know how important it is after the COVID experience to have social interaction. And I hope this comes up during our question answer type of thing. The social interaction with others is very important. I'm going to stop here because I want to have time for us to talk about it and not just give a lecture. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I bet there's nobody else on this screen who has ever experienced with me having a short amount of time to prepare, right, Billy, or Karen, or Sharon, or Emma? We could just go down the list, right? So thank you for saying yes to bringing this wisdom, but also some insight into the Hindu traditions. So what I've heard is that, you know, this universal wholeness, healing that we're all a part of, right? And also the importance of internal and individual, that kind of healing and almost alignment. You talked about meditation. And then the collective, the coming together and the gathering together, how that is important. And then I really appreciate bringing forward equanimity. I don't hear that word a lot just in everyday talk, right? In our dominant culture. But I do know, like in the study of compassion skills, equanimity is an important practice of being at peace at all time, but also being able to, in one sense, be able to almost step back a bit to see the equanimity, of all that is happening, to be able to see that. And, the importance of having that skill in our culture today, to be able to look at a larger picture while we're in it, right? Or in a portion of it. Could you say a little bit more, and others can be thinking, you can add questions in the chat or raise your hand, but could you say just a little bit more, Rajam, about the more physical, and I know there's that separation, but within Hinduism, the more physical types of healing, and you mentioned early on the Ayurvedic, and just a little bit more about those, and how do those practices contribute to healing?
It's still being practiced. Ayurveda is a very much developed science. There are universities and you get a degree in it, and there are practitioners of Ayurveda, and practically 80 to 90% of the population would be using some form of that medicine in their keeping themselves healthy. Preventive health, very much involved in that. And medicines and things like that are used as a way of life, almost as a way of life. Like, you get up and you do your yoga, for example. There's one way of keeping yourself very healthy, very fit. And as a child, I knew about it. It was not something that was being practiced by all the people around me. And then after coming here, not for a long time, very recently, I want to say in the last 30 years or so, this has come into the Western consciousness, and we are all more aware of yoga. The downside of it is yoga is equated sometimes with religion, which it shouldn't be. It is a practice for healthy being. And it's a very good thing, I believe, for children to learn. That is one you start out. And then the food, I wish I could have another half an hour just to talk about the food eating practices in the Hindu religion. I'm not talking about vegetarianism and non-vegetarian, because in India, you may look at every Indian person and think, oh, vegetarian. Not true at all. Only 30% of the Indians are vegetarian. The rest are, they do eat all kinds of different meats. And so it's that is a very big aspect of the practice, the everyday practice that is focusing so much on preventive health. Like the balance. I think it was Linda last week who used the word balance for what we are discussing now, to have that balance. And in this in the Hindu medicine, I shouldn't even say Hindu medicine. We should think of it as medicine that comes from that part of the world, Bharat, that part of the world. They would think of certain kinds of foods that are eaten for certain festivals. Certain preparations are made. And one of them will be coming very soon in the month of March, I believe, is the traditional Hindu New Year, where there is a mixture of brown sugar, not the brown sugar we know from HEB, but it is the brown sugar that is gotten from sugar cane. That brown sugar, which is not purified, and a very bitter leaf called neem, N-E-E-M. It's known very much here. So the neem, they mix it and they make you eat it. Every morning, twice a week. Grandma would drag us, come and sit down, put hot, warm oil with some cumin seeds in it, like this, as though it's trying to enter our skull. We would try to fight it and try to run away from it as kids. I wish somebody would do that now for me. I will just sit there for hours. So very everyday practices that are so much involved with health. And another thing which is so important for us to know, understand, which is there, which is going away, unfortunately, is acceptance of aging. Acceptance of aging. You age and you have to understand that, yes, you have to age, and that is a state of the human being. And I won't go into all this. Our life is divided into 4 phases, and the last phase of it is called Vanaprastha. That means going to the forest. You're really not going to the forest, you're in your home, but you're giving up everything and trying to be very much in peace with yourself. Vanaprastha. So these kinds of ideas and traditions, I believe, are very good for health. Is everybody following? That's a totally different question, but it is there in the Hindu teachings. I don't answer everything.
It's wonderful. And I don't know if, this is happening to other people while we're listening, but I have been writing down some things in chat. But that whole acceptance of aging, in our dominant culture, it's almost like we run from that. It's like almost the reverse, right? Denial, or like I said, running from it. I don't know what it's called other than running from it, but how important that is. And in this kind of sharing from the different traditions, right? At least for me, I'm hearing not just complementary, but almost like puzzle pieces that maybe in one tradition something is happening that's not happening in other traditions, but it kind of starts to complete this, even a puzzle, a wholeness of sharing. And then to even see things like yoga being so much more about, in the dominant culture, so many more people doing that. And how it always surprises me when one of my grandchildren does something like, and Rajam, I have got to send you some photos of my 3-year-old grandson. He does yoga every day. And I've got some have been doing it in diapers that is just exquisite. And, but when they do those things, I'm like, what? And so they're learning them at school. And and how that helps that balance. And hopefully for me, watching all of that, it's that rooting even of equanimity, that beginning kind of place of your body knowing, right, what that is. So I'm going to take just a brief pause. Rajam, are you able to stay with us for till a quarter till maybe? Okay. I want to thank those who are already are leaving, but for coming today. And we're going to continue this healing series next Thursday, unless something comes up that we might have to do something else. I don't know what that is, but that's the plan. We're going to continue from different traditions, and hearing about those practices and what those traditions are. I love too the fact that you said now that's what we think. Now, is that what we actually do? We could say that with every tradition, right? I know we can't. And so anyway, we're going to continue that next Thursday, and we hope you join us then. So Sharon has her hand up. She is now back in Canada, and we're missing her presence in San Antonio, and not only her presence, but contribution.
Ouch. Yes, it hurts. Anyway, hi, Rajam. This was so fascinating. And I just wanted to comment / ask a striking quality for me was a wholeness, there's a wholeness in the spiritual and worldview that I am part of everything, and the oneness of the divine that I am part of. And so I respond to life because that's who I am, not because it's an idea that I need to do it. I feel it because I'm part of it. And with the health, there's also this beautiful fullness. It's the what you eat and how you move your body, and this kind of holistic view of health. It just seems to me to carry through into the spiritual worldview and be such an important thing in our separated society, So I just wanted to say that.
That sounded like a real statement of gratitude. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Especially in times where we're just like, we're polarized and pulled apart, and fractured in ways. And I appreciate too, Rajam, that you kind of started even in that collective and then the community, the importance of the community then, even more so when we're so polarized and fractured and in ways of our context. We might not be in the midst of it, but we also know we're a part of it. That wholeness, right? That oneness applies to all things. So it's also where we are disconnected as well. We're a part of that. So bringing healing to that. Are there other questions or comments for Rajam this morning? I'd love to hear them.
I wanted to say something. You mentioned about sheer isolation and post-COVID with some of the children that were online and remote. It seems like I have a 12-year-old and I'm still trying to get him out. He was very active previously, and what is something that I could do as a parent to try and get my 12-year-old more interacting with me? I started trying to learn some of his video games because I know he likes video games. So I'm trying to learn how to play them just so I could relate to him on something that gives him interest. But what is something else you'd recommend that from the household that I could do to try and bring him out of that and just be more socially active? When the family comes, he's not as talkative as he used to be, and he's just really sometimes just quiet.
Is he the only child in the house?
He is, yes. Yeah, he doesn't have the primos hermanos, all the cousins. Like my oldest children had all the cousins together. Ricky is just the age differential is about 8 years from the next child, which is the older, his older brother.
Sonia, it's so interesting to hear that, because I've heard this with other from other parents who I know. A 13-year-old, and she's not the only child, 13-year-old who wanted to go and sleep with their parents. And this is like, post-COVID, because I think there is this fear of being separated from our loved ones. What could happen, like, is mom going to be around there? Is something going to take her away? So that fear is more real to some of us, some of the kids, and reassurance that it's going to take some time, but believe me, he'll recover from it. It's taking more time for him than for somebody else. And I asked about him being alone, because also he is the only child. Much more for him. But recovery is definitely good. Keep close to him. Try to see if you can gather with family, friends, others, and minimizing TV watching. Most of the traumatic things that are going on is really good for children. I can't emphasize this anymore. Like, we do have to talk about events of the world, because we are not the only source of information from them, and TV is not the only source of information. They hear it from other kids, from others. But it's good to minimize TV, because there's too much. There's too much they are seeing when they are watching TV.
Thank you.
Give time. Yeah.
Very well.
It makes me think too, Rajam, of you're now retired, but of your medical practice with children, and how have these practices from within your faith tradition, your spiritual tradition, how did those things inform your medical practice? Where did you see that happening? It's a big question at 8:42, right?
My medical practice was very informed, not by so much as faith as by dance. I don't know how many of you all know that I teach Indian classical dance. And I am a neonatologist, so that is somebody who takes care of, or specialized in taking care of premature babies. And the smallest ones I have seen are less than a pound, and at birth. And so I would look at their development. The last 14, 15 years of my service, I was following them. I was in charge of the clinic, the outpatient clinic, where we saw the babies who survived and who would come back to the clinic for us to follow their development. So I would apply some of the things that I was finding with my dance students to my patients. And I would take some information, what I'm observing in the patients, and apply to my dance students. So my way of teaching dance is very much influenced by medicine, what I do at work. It's very revealing. Like, the children come to ballet class and you expect them to stand on one leg. A 5-year-old may be able to do that very well. A 3-year-old may not. and to really not strive to make that 3-year-old stand on one, leg. Instead, you let them grow. Let them do what they can do very well in the beginning. I've learned so much from my patients and families. I always used to say, no, you cannot give this kind of food to your child. Buy some berries, buy some raspberries, buy some blackberries, strawberries, and you give that as the snack and not Cheetos. Okay. And I would go to H-E-B for my grocery shopping. I don't want to spend too much time. I would just put in the cart stuff I want. I never looked at the label or the price. I want tomatoes today. I would buy the tomatoes. I didn't look at, oh, how much is tomatoes today? What does it cost? For the longest time, I didn't pay attention to the price of milk that had gone up almost twice. Did you all remember that phase? The price of milk went up. So one day, I don't know for what reason, I looked at the price of blueberries. That was an entire day's lunch for a family of 4. How can a family buy that kind of food that is healthy? You have to buy the food that fills the stomach of that child and the rest of your family. So there is so much we have to learn in our professions, in our way of thinking. Transportation is another big area. Why is this person not coming to church? Is it because of faith or is it because of transportation problem? Common thing in the clinics, we would have so many absences because they couldn't find a ride. So I think you're absolutely right, and our things are influenced. They're not. We are not living in pockets of isolation of anything. It is just, we have to consider like whole, our lives, people around us, and the universe. We are all one family, and we have to balance very much what is available on earth.
I want to thank you. I mean, it connects right with that we're all connected, right? For better, for worse, right? For the bumps and for the healing as well. I want to share with you, and then we'll end. We're past our 8:45, but my 3-year-old, and I know that Rajam will make her smile here, he calls all the berries babies. So they are blue babies and babies and straw babies, and they're all babies. And just to hear him ask for it, there's, I don't know how to explain it, but like there's this internal connection that happens. Could I have some babies? I'd like blue babies. There's something so like not only yes to that, but how that's so needed. And I'm going to leave it at that. There is a food insecurity task force that is at work in San Antonio through the city and community. And so I think the beautiful thing that's happening in our city is the recognition that all of these things that we're working at, jobs, food insecurity, housing, right? Mental health, migration, they're all connected. There's a connectivity to that. They are part of the whole. So how do we address things that are so large, but by trying our best to buy, blue babies and babies and strawberries for the straw babies for our babies. So I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Rajam, for stepping up, and always amazing to hear your wisdom and your thoughts. And I'll be sharing more. There's a panel that's happening during Dream Week that's going to be all women from many faiths perspectives talking about the compassion drive, which we're going to be hearing much more about that as we get closer to January. So thank you all. Have great days.
Thank you.
I don't see the big storms yet, but be safe if they come up, right? Be safe. See you next week. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.